Hari Om everyone, we'll start with a prayer. Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kamsachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Chapter 12. Arjuna Uvacha Evam Satatayuktaye Bhaktasvam Payupasate Ye Chapyaksharamauvyaktam Tesham Ke Yogavittama. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yuktatamamata Ye Tvaksharamanirtesham Avyaktam Parupasate Sarvatra Gamachintyam Cha Kutashtam Achalam Dhruvam Samyam Yendriya Gramam Sarvatra Samabuddhaya Te Prapnuvanti Mameva Sarvabhutahite Rata Kleshodhikatarastesham Avyakta Sattachetasam Avyakta Hikatir Dukkham Dehavadbhiravapyate Ye tu sarvani karmani Mayi sanyasya matpara Ananyenaiva yogena Mam dhyayanta upasate Teshamaham samudharta Mrityu samsara sagarat Bhavami nachirat partha Maya vesita chetasam Mayi eva mana adatsva Mayi buddhim niveshaya Nivashishyasi mayi eva Atha urdhvam na samshaya Atha chittam samadhatum Na saknosi mayi stiram Abhyasa yogena tato Mamichhaptum dhananjaya Abhyasebhya samaritosi Matkarma paramo bhava Madartam abhikarmani Kurvan siddhimavakshasi Adhaikarabhya saktosi Kartum madyogamashrita Sarva karma phalatyagam Tata kuru yatatmavan Shreyo hiyanam abhyasaj Jnana dhyanam vishishyate Dhyana karma phalatyagas Tyaga shantiranantaram Arvishta sarva bhutanam Maitra karuna evacha Nirmamo nirahamkaraha Samadukha shukashami Samtushta satatam yogi Yatatma dhridanishchaya Mayarpita mano buddhir Yo man bhakta same priya Yasmano dvijate loko Lokano dvijate chaya Harshamayodvege Muktoya sachame priya Anapeksha suchiritaksha Udasino gatavyata Sarvarambha parityagi Yo man bhakta same priya Yo na drishyati na drishti Na sochati na kamshati Shubha shubha parityagi Bhakti manya same priya Samasadrau cha mitrecha Tatha mana pamanayo Sitosna sukha dukkeshu Samasanga vivarjita Tulya ninda stutir mauni Samtushto yena kenachit Aniketa stiramatir Bhaktiman me priyo nara Ye tu dharmyamritamidam Yadoktam parupasate Shraddhadanamat parama Bhaktaste diva me priya Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे भक्तियोगो नाम द्वादशोऽध्यायः। हरि ओम तत्सत्, हरि ओम तत्सत्, हरि ओम तत्सत्। श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु। शुभं भूयात्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्।
Hari Om. Today we'll be starting chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 12 is the culmination of the middle portion of the Bhagavad Gita, that is from chapter 7 to 12 that deal with no sound. Is it okay? Okay. So let me start again. We'll be starting chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita today. And chapter 12 is the culmination of the middle section of the Gita, which is from chapter 7 to 12 that deal with Bhakti Yoga. So as you all know, chapters 1 to 6 deal with Karma Yoga, chapters 7 to 12 with Bhakti Yoga, and chapters 13 to 18 with Jnana Yoga. So instead of the word bhakti, the word upasana is used here in this chapter. The word upasana or bhakti can be taken as one and the same. So what does upasana mean? We are very familiar with the term bhakti, but what does upasana mean? Upasana comes from two words, upa and plus asana. Upa means near, asana means to sit. So upasana means near, sit, meaning to bring our mind closest to the Lord through various methods, either through what you call bhajans or through prayers or rituals, going to temples, etc. And even study of the scriptures also is a way to bring our mind closer to the Lord also. So for the concept of bhakti yoga, there is a concept of God which has been presented to us. Because if we want to worship God, we must know something about God. We must know about the nature of God. Where is God? Who is God? So for the purpose of the path of bhakti, the concept of God has been presented to us from chapters 7 to 11. And God has been presented to us at two levels. One is called Saguna Ishvara. So the word guna means attributes. Saguna means that which has attributes. So one is Saguna Ishvara, that means that God which we worship, example like Krishna or Shiva or Rama, Hanuman, Devi, Ganesha, etc. That is called Saguna Ishvara Upasana. And such a type of worship is a very pleasant form of worship, because we can have our own Ishta Devata, the God form which is most pleasing to us. We can offer flowers to the Lord, we can offer fruits to the Lord, we can chant His mantras, we can go on pilgrimage to where the temples of the Lord are there. So there are many, it's a very direct, a very personal form of worship. Okay? More easy form of devotion to practice. And the essence of this pure bhakti, pure devotion, is outlined in Narad Bhakti Sutras. How many of you have read Narad Bhakti Sutras? Nobody. Only one. Okay. Narad Bhakti Sutras is all about the pure devotion to God. And who is Narad? Narad was the son of a female servant. And he was very fortunate because where his mother worked, many sages and saints came to the village to rest during the 4 particular months of the rainy season known as Chaturmas. So where there is a lot of rains, as to get away from this, they came to this particular place and they used to reside there for 4 months. Narad's mother encouraged him to serve these holy ones, and they in turn were so pleased with his service that they blessed him with divine knowledge. One day, unfortunately, Narad's mother was bitten by a snake and she died, and he left the village. He went to sit under a peepal tree and he meditated on the Lord. Lord Krishna revealed himself in Narad's heart, and it brought a lot of joy and ecstasy to Narad. However, the vision did not last very long, and Narad was very disappointed. Then the voice of Lord Krishna spoke to him and said, "O child, you cannot get a vision of myself in this present birth. Because of your intense satsang with the holy people, you have managed to establish your devotion in me. I only revealed myself to you to increase your devotion and faith in me. When you leave this present body, you will be very near and dear to me." So Narad also attained, he was not only immersed in bhakti for the Lord, but he also attained jnanam at the very feet of Sanat Kumara. And this episode of Narad approaching Sanat Kumara is related beautifully in the Chandogya Upanishads. And also, it was Narad who inspired sage Vyasa to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, you all know what is Srimad Bhagavatam? It contains 18,000 verses that deals with the life of Sri Krishna. Now, Vyasa was a very renowned sage, but he was a lot into jnanam. He was very much into knowledge. So Narad inspired him to write something on the basis of bhakti, and that's when Vyasa wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we know that Narad is also one of the Chiranjeevis. So he's alive through every yuga. Narad never goes away. Like Hanuman is also a Chiranjeevi, Narad is also a Chiranjeevi. They never die. They exist in every yuga. So that is one point of bhakti. Now, then the Lord is also presented on another level. Instead of Saguna, he is also presented as Nirguna Ishvara. What is Nirguna Ishvara? That is the formless God. In the Upanishads, Nirguna Ishvara is also known as Brahman. Brahman is devoid of any attributes, so there is nothing to worship. There is no form to worship. It is all pervading, it is eternal. So how do we come to this worship of Nirguna Ishvara? We have to go through the study of the scriptures. Sravanam, listening to the Upanishads, Mananam, reflecting on the words of the Upanishads, and finally Nididhyasanam, which means to meditate on the unmanifest Brahman. So it is a whole process that you have to go through. Okay? So how the devotee sits down and meditates on the formless Brahman is also described in this chapter 12. We will come to verse number 3. We will then discuss that. So you must remember that Nirguna Brahman is devoid of any attribute. So there is no form to worship. Okay? In essence, now the question is, since God is presented to us at two different levels, Saguna and Nirguna, obviously the question to us will be, which is the right form to worship? Is it Saguna is going to give me moksha, or is Nirguna going to give me moksha? Which is a more superior form of worship? And that is exactly the same question that Arjuna is going to ask in verse number 1 of chapter 12. He will ask exactly the same question. And the Lord will take 19 verses in chapter 12 to answer this question of Arjuna. Okay? So what in essence Krishna will say in chapter 12 is this: every devotee must start with Saguna worship. Why must we start with Saguna worship? Why must we start with worship of a form? Why not straight away jump to Nirguna worship? Why must we start with Saguna worship? This is what Krishna is going to say in chapter 12, that everybody must start with Saguna worship. Why? Something to focus on, exactly. Because our mind is weak, it is vacillating, running here and there. So to bring this mind under our control, it is advised that we first start with Saguna worship, to bring this mind under our control. Otherwise, it is not easy to focus on something that is unmanifest. Something has no attributes. How do we fix our mind on that? So first we start with Saguna worship. And then we perform all our duties, our responsibilities in the path of Karma Yoga. We purify ourselves, we perform rituals to bring the mind single pointed, and then only we come to the worship of the Nirguna Ishvara. Okay? So it is a step by step process. Now, in this chapter 12, Krishna is going to tell us there are 5 levels to bhakti. The highest level is Nirguna. The lowest level is Saguna. So from how do we process? First he will present to us level 5 of worship. Then he says, if you can't do level 5, come to level 4. You can't do level 4, what do? Come to level 3. You can't do 3, come to 2. You can't do 2, come to 1. Then if you say 1 also difficult, I can't do, then what do?
Try.
Huh?
Try.
You still say very difficult, I can't do. Then what do? The most easiest basic form he gives you level 1. From verses 4 to 11, 5 different forms of bhakti are there. Verse 11 he comes to the lowest level of bhakti. You say I can't do that, then the only solution is for you to come back next birth and try again. Try better luck next birth. Because there is nothing else you can do. Okay? And then also he gives us some additional knowledge about bhakti. From verses 13 to 19, he gives us 30 over qualities of a true devotee of Lord. Now, the question is, why does he give us all these qualities of a true bhakta, a true devotee of Lord? The reason is, if we go through systematically these 5 steps, there will be a total change in our personality. If we diligently follow these 5 levels of bhakti, there will be a total change in our outlook. How we respond, how we react to the world. What I call as POS. What is POS? How we respond to people. P stands for people. So what is our relationship with people? How do we interact with people? Do we get upset? Do we get angry? Are we very humble? Are we very loving? What is our reaction with people? O stands for objects. What is our relationship to objects? Are we happy with what we have? Are we dissatisfied with what we have? Are we always chasing after new and new objects? And S stands for situations in life. Sometimes they are positive situations, sometimes they are negative situations. How do we handle this? So these 30 over qualities that Krishna tells us in verses 13 to 19 of chapter 12 is a very good checklist for us. We should write down all these qualities and judge ourselves what qualities we have, and as we progress, are we also getting all these additional qualities? The more and more of these qualities you have means what? What does it mean? The more and more of these qualities you have, what does it mean? Huh? Means you are progressing in the right direction. You are progressing well if you start getting more and more of these qualities. So now with this understanding, let us now enter into chapter 12. Okay. So we look at verse number 1. Now in verse number 1, Arjuna asked the question from Lord. So the first 2 lines of this verse number 1, he will talk about Saguna Ishvara worship. The last 2 lines of verse number 1, he will talk about Nirguna Ishvara worship. So this is how Arjuna asks his question. He says to the Lord, Ye Bhakta, those devotees. What type of devotees? Evam Satata Yukta. Evam, thus. Satata, always, constantly. Yukta, who are trying their best to unite with you. So there are one type of devotees who are doing their very best to constantly worship you, constantly unite with you. How do they do that? So the word comes in here. If you look at the second line of the Sanskrit text, Paryupasate, the word upasana comes in here. The root word of this word Paryupasate is upasana. Upasana is what? Bringing your mind close to the Lord. So there is one type of devotees who constantly worship you, pray to you, go to temples, go to pilgrimage, sing bhajans, do seva. They do everything by fixing their mind on you. So this refers to a worship of the form. So they are constantly worshipping you in various forms. Okay. Now this is one type of devotee. So the second two lines he says, however, Ye cha api. Again, there are those different type of devotees, another group of devotees. What do? They worship you as the word here uses aksharam. So, aksharam here, which appears in the third line of the Sanskrit text, is the opposite of chara. Chara means that which is perishable, that which is constantly changing. So when you add the word in front of it, akshara, it means that which is imperishable, that is not subject to change. So this refers to what? It refers to the nirguna Brahman, because the nirguna Brahman is not subject to change. Now, if you take Krishna example, is Krishna subject to change? Is Krishna subject to change? Wasn't Krishna presented as a baby boy? Then he was presented as a youth Krishna. Then he was presented as adult Krishna. So form is always subject to change. And every avatar comes and every avatar goes. I'm talking about the bodily, the manifestation of the Lord. He comes, he goes. The essence of the Lord remains, but his avatars come and go. Rama came, Rama went. Krishna came, Krishna went. So the avatars, they come and go. So here he's talking about Aksharam, which means the essence of all these avatars, which is Brahman, which is that consciousness, that is not subject to change. And he uses another word to describe this Nirguna Brahman. He says this Nirguna Brahman that people worship is Avyaktam. Avyaktam means unmanifest. Unmanifest means that does not take a form, that is devoid of all attributes. So there are two types of worshippers now that Arjuna has identified. Okay. Now, so as we know also, there are many different type of devotees. Even here, there are some devotees, they like to come only during festivals. They like to come and hear bhajans. They like to offer flowers to the Lord, offer fruits to the Lord. They like to hear the stories of the Lord. But there are some devotees who like to stay at home. They like to meditate. They want to study the scriptures. Or some, they even take sannyas also. They give up everything and they take to a life of renunciation. So there are so many different types of devotees. So Arjuna asks this important question now in the last line of the Sanskrit text. Tesham, of the two type of devotees which he has mentioned, which of these two type of devotees is Yoga Vittama? Vittama means who is the most supreme, who is the most best devotee or Lord, who is trying to unite with you. Is it the one who worships the form, or is it the one who worships the formless? Which is the more superior devotee? Formless. Is the formless the most superior devotee, or the form the most superior devotee? So we will now hear Krishna's reply now, starting from verse number 2. Now, so here verse number 2 says, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Lord starts speaking now. Now this verse 2 first, the Lord talks about the devotee who worships him with form. So first he describes who is this devotee, okay, who worships the Lord with form. He says, Yea, those devotees, And very careful here when we're talking about devotees, this doesn't mean the type of devotee who goes to temple once a week or only goes to temple during Shivaratri or Janmashtami. No. He's specifically identifying the nature of the devotee who worships him in form. He says, Ye, those devotees, Nitya Yukta, they are constantly Nitya Yukta, they are constantly worshipping. They are every day they sit down, they do their prayers, they do their rituals. So this is not a part-time devotee is talking about. It is a full-time, committed, dedicated devotee. Yukta means he is trying to connect with the Lord through his prayers, through rituals, whatever it is, but he does it. Nitya means daily. Okay? He is engaged in the worship of the Lord. And another quality he gives, very important quality. This devotee not only worships me daily with commitment, but upeta, he is endowed with Shraddha, faith. He has faith in the Lord. So faith is very important. Again, the devotee is very clearly identified. Daily worships him, is endowed with faith. But now, faith also not enough. This is a very special type of faith. What is it? Paraya Shraddha, a supreme faith. Now, what is the difference between faith and supreme faith? Here he's saying Paraya Shraddha. He doesn't just say Shraddha, faith. He says Paraya Shraddha, supreme faith. What is the difference with this faith and supreme faith?
Faith is total surrender with no expectation.
With no faith is with total surrender with no expectation. And supreme faith?
That's supreme.
Or there's supreme faith. What is then faith? Okay, or what do you mean by total surrender? Huh?
Don't ask.
Don't ask for anything. Okay, that is one. What else? Supreme faith means whatever happens in your life, good or bad, positive or negative, your faith cannot be shaken. That is supreme faith. Whereas other type of faith, when everything is going pleasant, thank you Lord. When everything has problem, then you say, why me, O Lord? That's the difference between faith and supreme faith. So there is one short story there which is told. A sage goes to a kingdom. One day a sage comes to his kingdom and he goes to the palace. He is received by the king. And the king gives his respect to the sage by giving him food to eat, by giving him a place to stay. And then later the sage comes to meet the king and he notices that the king is very, very sad, is very, very depressed. So he asks the king, "O king, what is your problem?" And the king says, "I have many, many problems. One is I have a lazy son. My prince is so lazy. I am getting old. I want to, rest and relax. But my son is lazy. The whole day he's only eating and sleeping. He doesn't take care of the kingdom at all." Then he says, "My ministers are all corrupt. They're all corrupt and lazy. They don't do anything for my subjects." Then he says, on top of that, the rains didn't come this year. So all the crops have failed. My subjects are starving. And on top of that, he says, at the borders, all the different kingdoms, my enemies are there. They're waiting to attack me. So I'm full of tension only. So he asked the sage, "Oh sage, what do you think of all this?" And the sage told him, "All this will pass. Whatever comes will go." And that he told him and he went away. Few years later, the sage came again to visit the same king. He was received with honor, respect. He was given food to eat, place to rest. Then he came to visit the king. This time he saw the king was very, very happy, very cheerful. He said, "Now I came few years ago, you're very sad. Now what happened? You look so cheerful." He said, "My son, he became a really responsible person. Now he's taking charge of the kingdom. He's doing everything efficiently. I got time to rest. And he sacked all my lazy ministers. He replaced them all with very efficient ministers. And the rains came. Now I have ample amount of crops. All my people have enough of food to eat. And all the kings who are at the border who tried to attack me, I made friends with them. Now we are all at peace with one another." So, O sage, what do you think about this? And the sage looked at the king and said, King, this too shall pass. Whatever happens, all the problems also pass. Whatever good also come, also will go. But to the devotee of the Lord, Paraya Shraddha, the supreme faith, means he is steadfast in his worship, in his faith all the time. So the Lord says here in verse number 2, in this manner, these devotees upasate mam, they worship me in form, with faith and with daily worship. And avesha manaha, their minds are always fixed on me. So this is very clearly a worship of the form also. Okay. Now, when you say again, their minds are fixed on me, what does this indicate to us? What type of devotee is this? Whose minds are fixed on me. What type of devotee does it indicate? Huh? Sorry? I can't hear you. Nishkama Bhakta. Yes, you're right. Nishkama Bhakta. Nishkama Bhakta means what? They have no other desire except to attain God. So when they worship the Lord, they don't ask for more material things, they don't ask for more worldly things. They are only interested in attaining the Lord. They are only interested in uniting with the Lord. So that's why he says, Avesha Manaha, they have fixed their minds on Mai, on me. So this, now, so what happens to these type of devotees now? Now we understand that Lord says he has described the devotee who worships him in form. Now let us say what is the conclusion of such a devotee. So what does he say? These devotees, the Saguna Bhaktas, Mataha, the Lord says, are considered by me. He is giving his opinion now. Such kind of devotees are Yukta Tamaha. They are the most superior devotees. They are the most best devotees of mine. So they are very good devotees. They are excellent devotees. So this is Lord's conclusion of those who worship him in form. Now let us see what the Lord says about those who worship him as the formless. Okay? This is in verse number 3. So the word again there to look at in the Sanskrit text is the word tu. In the first line, tu means apart from the other than the Saguna Ishvara worshippers, there is another type of worshipper. What do these worshippers do? Paryupasate, they also meditate, they also worship. Mam eva, they worship me also. But how do they worship me? They worship me as Aksharam. Aksharam here, as we explained earlier, is the imperishable. So this second type of devotee worships me as the formless, as the imperishable. Now, he gives us the six qualities of this unmanifest Brahman. So there are 6 descriptions. Now, all these descriptions, what is the purpose of this description? You see, when we meditate on a form, at least there is something for us to see. Even if we close our eyes, we can still recall the form, right? We can recall Krishna's flute, his smiling face, whatever he's holding in his hand. We can still meditate on a form. But when you close your eyes and try to meditate on formless, what do you meditate on? What do you meditate on? So these words which are from the Upanishads, which describe the formless Brahman, you recall each word and you meditate on that word. You meditate, you recall the word, you meditate on the word. Recall the word, meditate on the word. That is the formless meditation. Number 1. Number 2, when you come to the formless meditation, you would have gone through a study of the scriptures. You would have come to understand that you are the Atman and you are not this body. So when you sit down in meditation, you will still get all the past thoughts, thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future. Your mind is running here and there. How do you handle these thoughts? When you sit down and meditate, all kinds of thoughts will come in your mind. All thoughts except thoughts of God will come in your mind. How do you handle these thoughts? So at Nirguna Ishvara meditation, the person understands that I am not the thoughts, I am the witness of the thoughts. I am not the thoughts, I am the witness of the thoughts. So you observe the thoughts, but you don't get involved with the thoughts. And this is the highest state of meditation. So while you're meditating on all the words of Brahman, all these words which we are going to go through, at the same time as thoughts arise, you consider yourself as a witness of the thoughts. Now, when you don't give any what you call any importance to these thoughts, what happens to all these thoughts? Slowly they die away. It is like if you don't offer fuel into the fire will slowly die and your mind will become peaceful. So here we are talking about the highest state of meditation, and what is the description of this highest state of Brahman? It is described here. The first description given here is Anirdesham. Anirdesham means indescribable. You cannot describe Brahman. Why can't you describe Brahman? Because he has no attributes. So how do you describe him? Anirdesham, indescribable. Second quality is avyaktam, unmanifest. Brahman cannot be perceived by the five senses. What has no form, your eyes cannot perceive. What has no sound, your ears cannot hear. So Brahman is called avyaktam. Okay? It is without taste, without smell, without sound, without touch also. In the Kena Upanishad, as one of the Upanishads, very interesting description given about this Brahman, this consciousness. Brahman is consciousness. The description given is this. What is this consciousness? The Guru tells the student, it is the eye of the eye, it is the ear of the ear, it is the mind of the mind. So the student is of course more confused. He is asked the Guru, what is Brahman, what is consciousness? The Guru says it is the eye of the eye, it is the ear of the ear, it is the mind of the mind. What he is trying to tell him is that consciousness is that which the eye cannot see, right? But by which the eye can see. Do you understand what I am trying to say? Consciousness is not what the eye can see because it has no form, but by which the eye can see. Meaning what? Consciousness is that which the ear cannot hear, but by which the ear can hear. So what do you mean by that? It means this body is made of matter, eye is matter, ears are matter. It is because of the presence of consciousness that your eyes are able to see, your ears are able to hear. But your eyes cannot see Brahman, your ears cannot hear Brahman. Example, if you have a torchlight in a dark room and you shine the torchlight, you can see everything except what? In a dark room, if you shine a torchlight, you can see everything in the dark room except what? Except what? Except the torchlight. Or I can go one step further, except the batteries you cannot see. Right? But because of the batteries, the torch shines to let you see everything. That is consciousness, that is Brahman. So here he says it is avyaktam, it is unmanifest also. Third quality, Brahman is sarvatragam. Sarvatragam means it is all pervading, it is everywhere. It is outside your body, it is inside your body. It is outside object, it is inside the objects. It is everywhere. Like what? Like space. Brahman is often compared to space. Fourth quality, achintayam. Achintayam means you can't even comprehend what it is. Your mind cannot even comprehend it because it has no form, no shape, no size, no color. Fourth quality. Fifth quality, very interesting quality here, is called kutashtam. Kutashtam actually, the original word for kutashtam is an anvil. You know what's an anvil? That which the, what you call that, ironsmith, they have the anvil and they want to shape a piece of metal. They put the metal on the anvil, and as they hammer that piece of metal, the metal changes shape, but the anvil does not change shape. So Kutashtam is the consciousness which is in this body. The body undergoes all kinds of changes, but the consciousness which is in the body doesn't change at all. It remains changeless. So it is identified as Kutashtam. That's why, interestingly, what is the word for this world in Sanskrit? Huh? Jagat, right? What does Jagat mean? Where did this word Jagat come from? See, in Sanskrit, every word has got a root word. From the root word, the main word is formed. So Jagat comes from two different words which are combined together. Jagat is Ja, which means Jayate, and Gat stands for Gachanti. Jayate Gachanti iti Jagat. What is Jagat? Jagat is that which is Jayate comes into existence and Gachanti goes out of existence. So now everything that we see in the world is Jagat. Is a tree Jagat? Yes or no?
Yes.
Tree is Jagat, right? It comes and then it goes. Is a flower Jagat? Yes. Is your body Jagat? Is your mind Jagat? Everything falls under this. It is subject to arrival and departure. So, Kutashtam is that which is always there. It is never subject to arrival and departure. Secondly, the Upanishads say everything in this Jagat is subject to 6 modifications. Everything goes through these 6 modifications. What are they? First is called Asti. It exists. For example, before a child is born, it exists in the mother's womb. So the first stage is it exists. Second stage is Jayate. It is born. It takes birth. Third is called Vartate. It grows, right, from child to adult. Fourth state is Viparimanate, which means it changes. What changes? Hair from black changes to white, skin starts to wrinkle, all sorts of changes happen. Sixth is Apakshayate, it declines, it deteriorates. And finally, Vinashati, it perishes. So everything in this creation goes through the 6 changes. But this Brahman, this consciousness is not subject to these 6 changes. So it is not subject to time modification. Earlier it was not subject to space modification. Okay? The next quality is Achalam. Achalam means non-moving. So what do you mean by non-moving? If Brahman exists everywhere, how can you move Brahman from one space to another? This body can move from here to there. It can move from KL to Penang. But Brahman is everywhere. So you cannot say I'm taking Brahman from this place to another place. So the next quality given is Achalam. It is not subject to movement. And finally, the 7th quality is Dhruvam. It is eternal. It exists in all periods of time. So the person who's meditating on all these qualities of Brahman, the Lord is talking about this higher state, Nirguna Ishvara. Now, what did he tell us about the Saguna Ishvara worshipper? What is the conclusion about the one who worships the God in form? So fast you forget. I just finished verse number 2. Oh, this is very dangerous. Huh? He is the most superior devotee. He is the most excellent devotee. Now let us hear what he is going to tell about the Nirguna Ishvara worshipper in this next verse number 4. So verse number 4, he is going to talk about the highest level of worship, level number 5, about this Nirguna Ishvara worshipper, and he is going to tell us what is the result of worshipping God who is formless. Okay, so now let us see what he says. What is the nature of this Nirguna Ishvara worshipper? The first is Samniyamye Indriya Gramam. Gramam means the group, Indriyas means the senses. Samniyamye means he has got total mastery, he's got total control about all his 5 senses. He's a master of his senses. He does not suppress them. Suppression is not mastery. Mastery means he is in full control of the senses. Okay? So, what are the five senses? The ears, the eyes, the nose, etc. The five senses. Okay? So, the human being is a master of the five senses. And throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna keeps warning us about the undisciplined senses. If you go back to chapter 2, verse 60, you go back to chapter 2, verse 60. What page is that? So what does he say there about the senses? He says, senses are turbulent by nature. He warns us, and many verses are there like that. Senses are turbulent by nature. Why is that? You see, the word senses in Sanskrit is called indriyas. Indriyas means tentacles. So where do your eyes like to go? Where do your eyes like to wander? Where? Huh? No, nice things, right? You want to see beautiful sunrise, beautiful sunrise, sunset, a nice picture, painting, right? So eyes like to wander outwards. They always are seeking something nice to see. Ears like to wander where? Huh? Where there's gossip going on. Like to hear juicy gossip, right? Nice things you like to hear. Tell you to go satsang, hear bhajan, do one. Like to hear juicy gossip, you run there. Nose likes to smell fragrance, perfume, like that, right? Skin wants to touch something nice. So all our five senses are external. Now, what is the problem when the senses are running to the external world? What is the problem? Senses by nature are tentacles. They are running towards the world. The world is attracting all our senses. But what is the bigger problem? They pull your mind. So it pulls your mind away. It distracts your mind. You are trying to focus your mind on something. The minute you're sitting here, supposing there's some nice food being cooked behind, where's your mind suddenly? Your mind runs along. So the senses are turbulent by nature, meaning they can pull your mind away in a different direction. So that's why discipline, the word used in verse 60, chapter 2, the word haranti. Haranti means they forcefully kidnap your senses away. They forcefully drag your senses away. That is the problem with undisciplined senses. So mastery of the senses in our scriptures is called indriya nigraha. Nigraha means to master your senses. It's a very important quality when we progress on the spiritual path. So who is this person who has got total mastery over the senses? Is the one who can worship the Lord in the formless. So that is the first quality. Samniyamye indriya gramam. And he says indriya gramam means all the senses, not that just you discipline your eyes, you don't discipline your other senses. No, he says all your senses you must have discipline. First quality. Second quality, samabuddhaya sarvatra. Samabuddhaya means even-minded. Sarvatra, everywhere. That means under any situation, under any circumstances, the mind is totally under his control. He has got mastery over his mind. He doesn't get carried away when people praise him. He doesn't get dejected when people insult him. His mind is always totally under his control. So he doesn't give in to raga dvesha, likes and dislikes. This is one of the biggest obstacles in our spiritual path, when we give in to likes and dislikes. So this fellow is samabuddhaya sarvatra. Then the next quality, rataha, always engage in what? Sarva bhuta, all the beings, every person, he is always engaged in the hitaha, in the welfare of all beings. He doesn't want to see anybody suffering, he doesn't want to see anybody hurt, so he's always ready to help people. He's always very careful with his words. He's always very helpful nature. And Sarva Bhuta means to all people. He does not distinguish these are his enemies, this person I don't like, I'm not going to help. Sarva Bhuta, to everyone, he is very, very mindful of their needs and concerns. So Sarva Bhuta also includes animals also. Person doesn't harm and hurt animals also. Okay? So interestingly, Swami Vivekananda, when he set up this Ramakrishna mission, he coined a motto for all the disciples to follow. The motto of the Ramakrishna mission is Atmana Mokshartam Jagat Hitayacha. Two duties of all the Ramakrishna devotees. The first duty is Atmana Mokshartam. One must work towards the moksha. One must work towards self-realization of the Atma. So eventually we want the Atma to merge with the Paramatma. That is the first mission. Second, he says Jagat Hitaya, one who cares for the welfare of the world, one who serves the world, one who takes care of the needs of others also. So while we are progressing and towards self-realization, we must not neglect what are the needs of others also. Okay? So now Krishna says, if this devotee has these qualities, who worships the imperishable, and he has these qualities, what will be the result? Gives us the result here. Te mam eva prapnuvanti. Such a devotee who worships Nirguna Ishvara, prapnuvanti, will attain mam eva, will attain me, definitely will attain me. He gives us the guarantee. So now, tell me which is the better worship now? Saguna Ishvara, what did he say about Saguna Ishvara? Verse number 2. He is the most superior devotee. But will he attain God? Will he attain God? What did he say in verse 2? Saguna Ishvara devotee, he says, is the best devotee, the most wonderful devotee. But did he say he will attain God? No. But Nirguna Ishvara devotee, he says what? He will attain me. So now you all will ask me one question. Sir, why are you wasting my time coming here for class? Better I go and worship the Nirguna Ishvara. Because by going to temple, Saguna Ishvara, you worship, Lord says you are a wonderful devotee, but you won't attain him. So now most of you will think what? Better I don't worship God in form, I jump and go and worship the Nirguna Ishvara. Is it correct? Should you waste your time worshipping Saguna Ishvara? So he tells us the answer now. He tells us the solution, okay, in the next verse number 5. So verse number 5 he tells us why one should not jump straight away to Nirguna Ishvara worship. Why one should go through Saguna Ishvara worship and then come to Nirguna. So he explains to us this in verse number 5. What does he say? Tesham, for those devotees, Chetasam, whose minds are asakta, who are attached to. So first he's telling us, those devotees whose minds are attached on avyakta, on the unmanifest, on Nirguna Ishvara. What is the biggest problem? He says, Adhikaratas. There is a great, great obstacle. There are many obstacles. To worship Nirguna Ishvara is not easy. He is saying it is Adhikataras. It is very difficult. There are many challenges. Because to worship something which has no form requires you to train your mind first to come to that level. Right? So it is easier to start on the worship of the form. So even the Katha Upanishads warns us. In Katha Upanishad there is a very beautiful line that says, Churasya Dara Nishita Duradyaya. Walking the spiritual path is like walking on the edge of a razor blade. It's a very difficult path to walk. It's a very dangerous path to walk. Now, the scriptures are not trying to discourage us. Why are they telling us this? They are not discouraging us. They are not saying don't come to unmanifest. But why are they telling us all this? Because they want us to prepare. They want us to prepare the mind. So they are telling us about how to go about preparing the mind and then come to the Nirguna Ishvara worship. So why is the path to unmanifest so difficult? He tells us here, Gati, the goal of Avyakta, the goal of the unmanifest, Lord says, is dukham. There are many challenges, there are many obstacles. And what is the most biggest obstacle when we come to worship the unmanifest? This is one of our biggest problems here. All of us face this problem. He says the worship of the unmanifest is very difficult for who? For which type of people? Those who are deha vadbi. Now this word is very important. The path of the unmanifest is very difficult, is very challenging for those who are deha vadbir. Deha means body. Deha vadbir means embodied beings. So who are the embodied beings? Are you embodied being? That means what? You can only reach Nirguna Ishvara when you give up this body. So what does embodied being mean here? Embodied being doesn't mean that only when I give up this body then only I'll reach Nirguna Ishvara. You have to reach Nirguna Ishvara while you are living with this body. But yet he says for embodied beings it's very, very difficult. So what does this embodied being mean? It means those who have attachment to this body. And attachment to this body is of two types. One is called ahamkara. Ahamkara means taking pride in this body. You know, I am so and so, I got this title, I'm the manager of this company, my wealth is so much, I've got this, I've got that. So one is taking pride in this body, your name, your family lineage and all that, your power, your position. The other is called mamakara. So ahamkara means attachment to body. Mamakara means attachment to everything the body is connected to. My car, my house, my club membership, all these things. You take pride in that, you take pride in your body. So what the Lord is saying, to reach this worship of Nirguna, first what must you overcome? Attachment to this body, exactly. You must overcome your attachment to this body. So as long as you have attachment to this body and attachment to all your possessions, you think very highly of yourself, you think very highly of your name, your fame, your title, he says progress on this Nirguna Ishvara worship is very, very challenging, very, very difficult. So now the question is, verse number 4 tells us the highest level. Verse number 4 tells us level 5, which is the highest level. And then he's telling us that is a very difficult level to reach. So what to do? Lord says you start with level number 4. What is level number 4? It's explained to us in verses 6, 7 and 8. So verses 6, 7 and 8, Lord will explain one level down you come, that is level number 4. And you say, I can't do that, then verse number 9 will explain level number 3. Verse number 10, level number 2, verse 11 will explain level number 1. So one by one he comes down and explains to us. And then at least he says you should assess now which level you are at and then progress accordingly. Okay. So now let us look at what is level number 4. Okay. What is level number 4 is explained here in verse number 6. So what do we do if we can't worship the Nirguna Brahman? So now he tells us another method now, or another level. He says those devotees who can't worship the unmanifest, he says start first with sannyasa. Sannyasa means not here taking renunciation, but dedicate. Dedicate what? Sarvani karmani. All your actions, whether they are spiritual actions, whether they are worldly actions, Sarvani karmani, dedicate all your actions to who? Mat paraha, to me, to be devoted to me. So, what does it mean by dedicating your actions to the Lord? When we dedicate our actions to the Lord, whether they are worldly actions or whether they are spiritual actions, everything we surrender to the Lord. That means there are no expectations. There are no demands, there are no expectations. And not only there are no expectation, but whatever happens as a result of your action, if it is positive or negative, you accept it as what? Ishvara prasadam. Now, what is prasadam? Prasadam is when you go to the temple and they give you some, after the prayers they give you something, right? You call it prasadam. Now, supposing he gives you a green apple, what is it called? Prasadam, right? Supposing you don't like green apple, you tell him, can you give me red apple? Will you do that? Why? Because it is prasadam, it is coming from the Lord, I accept. Whether I like it or not, I accept. Similarly, when I perform an action, it's called Ishvara Arpanam. I offer it to the Lord. Like I go to the temple, I offer the fruits to the Lord. After the prayer, the priest gives me back the fruit. It is called Ishvara Prasadam. I also accept. Whether I like it or not, I accept it. Why? Because it is coming from the Lord. So when he says surrender all actions, meaning dedicate all your actions to the Lord, everything I'm doing, O Lord, I'm doing for you. You remember that famous verse in chapter 11 which we went through? Imita matram bhava. You remember that? Be an instrument in my hands. That's what Krishna told Arjuna. Do your duty, perform all your actions, but consider yourself as an instrument in my hands. So whatever we do, oh Lord, I am just an instrument in your hands. Whether I'm serving the family, whether I'm doing my work in the office, whether I'm praying at the temple, I'm just an instrument in your hands. Everything is in your hands, oh Lord. So he says dedicate. Start first by dedicating all your actions to me. And therefore he says upasate, by fixing your mind on me. How? Ananyena eva yogena, with single-minded concentration. Okay? Single-minded concentration. That means you're performing all actions for the Lord only for the sake of serving the Lord. How do I serve the Lord? By serving his creation, I'm serving the Lord. So he says, at least start by performing all actions for me. Now, what will the Lord do for such a devotee? Supposing you say, okay, I perform all the actions for you, I dedicate all my actions for you, whatever happens, I accept as Ishvara Prasadam. What will the Lord do for us? He tells us in verse number 7. He says, Tesham, for these type of devotees. Which type of devotee? Level number 4 devotee. He says, Tesham, for these type of devotees who are my avasita chetasam. Chetasam, whose mind is avasita, absorbed in me, who's totally dedicated all his actions to me. What will I do? He says, Na chirat, without any delay, for such kind of devotees, I will uddharta, I will lift them up. Uddharta, from what will I lift them up? Mrityu samsara sagara, from this ocean of birth and death. So what he's telling us, the promise he's giving us is that any devotee who surrenders all actions to me, thinks of me while performing actions, accepts everything as Ishvara Prasadam, I will lift this devotee up from the ocean of birth and death. Now the question is, why is this world compared to samsara, ocean of birth and death? So if we look at this world, what happens when we die here? Where do we go? Not sure, I also not sure. Anyway, somewhere we will go. So, but what happens wherever we go, whether we go to heaven or hell, what happens? After that, we have to come back. After we come back, what happens? We go back again. So that is exactly like an ocean. The water evaporates, goes to the clouds. Clouds send the rain back into river. River sends it back to the ocean. So that's why this world is considered as a samsara. You come and go and come and go. Now the question is, what the Lord is saying, I will lift the devotee out from this ocean of samsara. How will he do that? How will he do that? How will he lift the devotee? What does he mean by saying, I lift the devotee from this ocean of birth and death? How can you escape this ocean of birth and death? By dedicating all your actions to the Lord. How will you reach to the level when you don't have to come back for another birth? So the answer is in chapter 10 verse 10. You go back to chapter 10 verse 10. What did he say to us in chapter 10 verse 10? Page number 184. Tesham satata yuktanam, for those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the yoga of understanding by which they come to me. I give them the right buddhi, the right intellect. I give them the right guru. I remove all the obstacles for them to come to the path of knowledge. So, meaning, when you dedicate all your actions to the Lord, when you surrender to the Lord and do all your duties and responsibilities, Lord says, I will bring you to the path of knowledge. I will provide you with the guru. I will provide you with the right environment to attain this knowledge. Once you attain this knowledge, you will then go to level 5 and attain moksha. So lifting you out of this ocean of birth, and that means he will clear the obstacles for you to get to this path of knowledge. So that is Lord's promise to us in this chapter number 12. What was that verse? Verse number 7. Okay. So then he will conclude. Next week we will come back and look at verse number 8, where he will conclude this level 4 of Bhakti Yoga, and then we will move on to the next levels of Bhakti. Okay. We will thus end the class here. Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Thank you, Hari Om.